A single signature was supposed to protect a billionaire empire, but before the ink had time to dry, it transformed the struggling single father sitting across the table into the unexpected beneficiary of a fortune worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The room fell silent. Lawyers stared in disbelief. Executives froze. And the woman everyone feared simply lowered her eyes, knowing the document she had forced him to sign would change both of their lives forever. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change lives, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Graham Mercer had never imagined walking into the towering headquarters of Ashcroft Dynamics. His mornings usually revolved around packing lunches, helping his 8-year-old daughter Elsie with her homework, and rushing between construction jobs that barely covered rent. Ever since his wife had passed away after a long illness, every day had become a careful balancing act between grief and responsibility. He carried exhaustion behind his smile, but he never allowed Elsie to see how frightened he really was. She believed her father could fix anything, even when his own life seemed impossible to repair. The invitation from the company had arrived without explanation. Graham assumed it concerned a construction project where he had repaired damaged equipment several months earlier. Instead, he was escorted into a polished conference room where executives waited alongside their intimidating chief executive officer, Vivian Ashcroft. She possessed the calm confidence of someone accustomed to making billion-dollar decisions before lunch. Employees respected her brilliance but feared her cold precision. She rarely smiled, and rumors claimed she trusted contracts more than people. Vivian slid a thick legal document across the polished table. Her voice remained steady as she explained that an internal investigation required Graham to sign a liability waiver concerning events surrounding a workplace accident months before. The company insisted it was routine. Graham hesitated. He had nothing to hide, yet years of hardship had taught him to read every document carefully. The attorneys reassured him repeatedly that the waiver merely protected the corporation from future claims. Thinking only about returning to his daughter before school ended, Graham finally signed. The attorneys exchanged nervous glances. One elderly lawyer suddenly stood, his face drained of color. He reread the final pages before whispering something into Vivian's ear. She closed her eyes as though accepting an unavoidable truth. A drafting mistake buried deep inside the legal revisions had merged the liability waiver with a confidential estate amendment prepared earlier that morning. Because of the order in which the pages had been assembled and witnessed, Graham Mercer had unknowingly become the primary beneficiary of Vivian Ashcroft's entire personal estate should anything happen to her before the correction could legally be completed. The room erupted into confusion. Executives demanded the papers be destroyed, lawyers argued over procedural law, but Vivian quietly raised one hand. The mistake, they admitted, had become legally binding. Everyone expected the billionaire CEO to explode with anger. Instead, she looked directly at Graham for the first time. She saw no greed in his expression. Only confusion, embarrassment, and concern that he had somehow caused a terrible misunderstanding. That he immediately offered to sign whatever new documents were necessary because he wanted nothing that wasn't honestly his. That single sentence changed everything. For years Vivian had been surrounded by ambitious relatives, executives, and investors who measured every relationship by financial gain. Yet the only person who accidentally inherited her fortune was desperately trying to give it back. She postponed correcting the paperwork. Officially, she claimed additional legal review was necessary. Privately, she wanted to understand the man who had refused unimaginable wealth without hesitation. Over the following weeks she quietly learned about Graham's life. She discovered he volunteered on weekends repairing playground equipment without charging struggling neighborhoods. She learned that he skipped meals so Elsie could attend music lessons. She watched security footage from months earlier showing Graham risking his own safety during the construction accident to pull 2 injured employees away from collapsing machinery before emergency crews arrived. He had never spoken publicly about it. He had never asked for recognition. He simply returned to work the following morning. Meanwhile, Graham grew increasingly uncomfortable knowing his name remained attached to Vivian's estate. Every letter from the legal department made him anxious. Friends joked that he had become secretly rich overnight, but he refused to imagine such a future. His greatest dream remained painfully simple: keeping his daughter safe and giving her opportunities he never had. One sunny afternoon, Vivian surprised everyone by visiting the small neighborhood where Graham lived. Luxury vehicles looked strangely out of place beside aging apartment buildings. Residents watched in amazement as one of the world's most influential business leaders walked alone toward the modest playground where Graham was repairing a broken swing while Elsie happily painted flowers on a nearby bench. Vivian expected awkwardness; instead she witnessed warmth. Children greeted Graham by name, neighbors thanked him for helping repair roofs after storms. Elsie proudly introduced every friend to her father as though he were the greatest hero alive, for perhaps the first time in years. Vivian envied someone. She possessed unimaginable wealth yet returned every evening to an empty mansion filled with silence. Graham possessed almost nothing, yet laughter surrounded him wherever he went. As weeks became months, newspaper speculation intensified. Financial analysts questioned why the estate documents remained unchanged. Vivian ignored every headline. Then tragedy nearly struck. During a routine inspection at one of Ashcroft Dynamics' manufacturing facilities, a defective overhead structure suddenly began collapsing. Toward visiting schoolchildren attending an educational tour, panic spread instantly. Without hesitation, Graham, who happened to be supervising repair work nearby, sprinted toward the danger, ignoring his own safety. He shielded several frightened children while helping workers pull them to safety. Everyone escaped with only minor injuries because one exhausted single father refused to run away. Television cameras captured everything. The country celebrated Graham as a hero. When reporters asked whether he regretted refusing the billionaire's fortune, Graham simply smiled and explained that real wealth meant being able to look his daughter in the eyes every evening knowing he had done the right thing. Those words reached millions. They also reached Vivian in a way no board meeting ever could. She finally understood what had been missing from her own life. Success had built her company, compassion would define her legacy. Instead of correcting the estate immediately, Vivian announced the creation of a charitable foundation dedicated to supporting widowed parents, single fathers, struggling families, and children whose futures depended upon someone believing in them. She invited Graham to serve as its director. He almost refused, convinced someone more qualified should lead such an important mission. Vivian reminded him that qualifications could be learned, character could not. Together they transformed abandoned community centers into learning spaces, funded scholarships, created emergency housing assistance, and built programs that allowed parents to work while their children received safe after-school care. Thousands of families discovered hope because one legal mistake had introduced two completely different people who desperately needed to meet. Months later, Vivian finally gathered her legal team. Everyone assumed she would remove Graham from her estate. Instead, she made only one adjustment: most of her wealth would support the foundation forever. The remaining personal estate would still pass to Graham and Elsie if she passed away before him, not because of an accident anymore, but because she had chosen it with complete clarity. When her attorneys questioned such an extraordinary decision, Vivian answered that fortunes should belong to people who understood their true purpose. Graham had repeatedly proven that money never controlled his heart. That was exactly why he could be trusted with it. Tears filled Graham's eyes when he learned the decision. He accepted only after promising that every dollar would continue serving families who had once stood where he and Elsie had stood, frightened but unwilling to surrender hope. Years passed beneath bright afternoon skies filled with ribbon cuttings, children's laughter, and communities rebuilding together. Elsie grew into a confident young woman inspired by both her father's quiet courage and Vivian's remarkable transformation. She often said the greatest inheritance she received was not financial security but the lesson that kindness can rewrite destinies more powerfully than wealth ever could. Before this story comes to its close, we'd love to hear from you. What do you believe is more valuable, great wealth or a generous heart that lifts others? Leave a meaningful comment below and share the lesson this story reminded you of. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. The extraordinary waiver that began as a simple legal form was never truly about an estate or an inheritance. It became proof that life sometimes hides its greatest blessings inside its strangest mistakes. A billionaire discovered that trust is earned through compassion, not power. A single father discovered that integrity is often rewarded in ways no one could ever predict. And countless families discovered brighter tomorrows because one honest man chose character over fortune long before fortune ever chose him. If you'd like, I can also